Coming up on Network Africa. Kenya's health ministry announces plans to deny government services to unvaccinated people. Nine people killed in inter-ethnic attacks in South Sudan. Plus, hundreds of inmates escaped from the Matadi jail in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoki. Let's begin the program with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
Sudan's military reinstated Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok on Sunday and announced the release of all political detainees after weeks of deadly unrest triggered by a coup.
Sudanese blood is precious. Let us stop the bloodshed and direct the youth's energy into construction and development. This agreement helps release the suffocation. We hope to end the internal and external suffocation and to bring us back on the path towards transition to achieve long-lasting democracy in our country.
Under an agreement signed with military leader General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, Hamdok will lead a civilian government of technocrats for a transitional period.
We have been living in a crisis for a long time. Thank God we are proud today that by signing this political decree, we are able to lay a real foundation for our transitional period, like we envisioned it and like the Sudanese people wanted it.
However, large crowds took to the streets to reject any deal involving the army. As U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken wrapped up his trip to the African continent on Saturday, he expressed deep concern during a visit to Dakar, Senegal, for the stability of neighboring Mali and violence in Ethiopia.
With regard to Mali, it remains a linchpin for future stability in the Sahel. And we have deep concerns about that stability and deep concerns about the extremism and terrorism that is spreading tentacles in the region. We very much stand with ECOWAS and the international community in calling for a return in Mali to the constitutional rule through democratic elections that need to take place according to the ECOWAS mandate by April of next year. We continue to push for an immediate end to hostilities without preconditions and humanitarian access for the millions of people in northern Ethiopia who need life-saving aid. And we continue to urge Americans to avail themselves of commercial flights out of the country, and we're providing assistance to them to do so.
Libya's interim Prime Minister, Abdul Hamid al-Biba, registered as a candidate for the presidency on Sunday, despite having vowed not to do so as a condition of taking his current post and despite contested election rules that may prevent him from standing. The Biba's entry into a race that now features many of Libya's main players of the past decade of chaos adds to the turmoil of a vote that is due to take place within 5 weeks, but for which rules have not yet been agreed. Parliamentary and presidential elections on December 24th were demanded by a UN Political Forum last year as part of a roadmap to end Libya's civil war, a process that also led to the formation of Biba's interim unity government.
To our main stories now, the Kenyan government says it plans to introduce a directive next month to prevent citizens who haven't been vaccinated against COVID-19 from receiving government services. Health Minister Mutahi Kagwe says unvaccinated people will be banned from public transport, local airlines and train services. Kenyans will also require proof of vaccination in order to visit government institutions for education, immigration, tax and other services services. The directive is expected to come into force on the 21st of December. Now, Kenya has a target of vaccinating 10 million people by the end of next month. Joining us now for more on this story is Kenyan journalist Cyrus Ombati. Thank you for speaking to us. How are Kenyans reacting to this plan by the government that unvaccinated people would be denied government services?
The issue of vaccination in Kenya has been controversial at large because some Kenyans are opposed to being vaccinated against COVID-19 pandemic. But then for it to be mandatory, it was seen coming. So the announcement by the government yesterday that those who are unvaccinated will not receive services in the government offices, well, it came as a surprise to some Kenyans, but then others saw it come because the surge is still has also started going up according to the Kenyan figures which have been given, and there are fears that it may go further higher in the coming days. I mean, many Kenyans have been reacting in so many ways. Some are saying it's unconstitutional to order the people to be vaccinated. Others saying it's a security threat, so the minister has a right to order Kenyans to be vaccinated. So it's an issue of choosing what you want as an individual, because if you want service in government offices, they will require that you have that vaccination kind of a certificate. We're waiting to see how it goes, but today we understand there were huge queues in public hospitals or where this vaccine is being administered out of reaction from the public who want now to be vaccinated at large. And we expect that number to increase in the coming days.
WHO has cautioned countries, over mandatory vaccination measures, saying that it raises real issues around human rights and civil liberties.
The issue of civil liberties has risen because of this directive, because even now, Amnesty International Kenya chapter has issued a statement saying the government should abandon the whole directive because it goes against the constitution, or rather the rights of Kenyans. But then there are those arguing that it's a right because the issue of COVID is threatening lives and stability of the region at large. So we are foreseeing a situation where some people will go to court to seek to stop the government from forcing Nairobi Kenyans from being vaccinated by force. But then the minister was invoking some acts of health which allows him to kind of force Kenyans to be vaccinated against the disease. Even worldwide, the World Health Organization has said no one should be forced to be vaccinated because it goes against somebody's liberties and rights. So going forward, we know the government has targets to meet by end of December, and we see this move by the Minister for Health as part of their strategies to meet the targets. Then we are waiting to see what happens next.
Well, speaking of government's target, 10 million people, that's what the government wants by December to be vaccinated. Are there adequate resources to achieve this goal?
Kenyans have been complaining that there is lack of vaccines in most health facilities, which is hindering the rollout process of the target of 10 million people by end of December. But the minister says that now they have enough vaccines in most facilities that can be able to help them meet the target of 10 million Kenyans by end of December. Going by the queues that we witnessed today morning in most facilities, we hope to see the number rise by the end of December.
All right then, Cyrus Ombati, Kenyan journalist, thank you. France is asking the president of Burkina Faso to intervene after a military convoy was held up for nearly 3 days by protesters in the city of Kaya. The foreign minister, Jean-Yves Le Drian, said those he calls manipulators have been stoking anti-French sentiment. There are unconfirmed reports, however, that French soldiers fired warning shots at the demonstrators who are opposed to the French force fighting Islamist militants in the Sahel. The vehicles are said to have eventually moved dozens of kilometers south from Kaya and made their way via a different route to neighboring Niger. At least 9 people are known to have died in inter-ethnic revenge attacks in Jonglei State in the eastern region of South Sudan. Governor Denia Jok told local reporters in the state capital, Bor, that they had been killed in 2 separate incidents over the weekend. He said the killings were sparked by an ambush of 2 young men by attackers, allegedly from the neighboring Greater Pibor administrative area. The incident was reported to have angered youth from the Dinka community who retaliated by attacking people from Pibor residing in Bor town, killing at least 7 of them. Well, local media reports that amongst the dead were ethnic Mole businessmen. The authorities now have begun investigations into the incident, and the governor says, but it is not clear whether suspects have been apprehended. The Intra-African Trade Fair 2021 has come to an end in Durban, South Africa, recording $36 billion deals during the week-long event. A total of 11,828 attendees attended physically, while attendees from 4 countries, including South Africa, Egypt, Cote d'Ivoire, and Nigeria, doubled this year compared with the first edition of the fair in 2018. The program ended with a press conference in which Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, who's the chairman at the IATF Advisory Council, praised the success of the fair, but says more still needs to be done to overcome obstacles to intra-African trade.
Can we have the microphone, please?
One of the things that will help, particularly in the area of transportation, is thriving coastal shipping in Africa, along the West African coast, along the East African coast. And these, we can get that done almost by tomorrow. So that is very important. I believe another thing that needs to be done is for you not to have to take visa to go to any African country from your country in Africa. I believe that is important. If I have been prevented from taking part in things in another country because I go to the airport and they say my visa is not ready, so I'll have to go back home. Now, in Africa, I believe the time has come when you should be able to move from A to B for business without having to go through the rigmarole of visa. And I believe that is also on its way. The other one that I will mention is, how do I do business if you have to ask me, go and get hard currency? I have to look for dollar. If I don't get dollar, then the business is not going to go through. Now, why couldn't I pay whatever I want to pay? I want to buy in Cameroon, in Nigerian currency, and then the man in Cameroon or the seller in Cameroon get his or her money in CFR, and I just pay what I have to pay. And again, that is already in existence. We only have to enhance it and make it more effective.
Also addressing the closing press conference, Professor Benedict Orama, president of the African Export-Import Bank, highlighted the importance of funding to boosting intra-African trade.
And I can go on about what we need money to do and why we need a bank to do it. We just need to strengthen our institutions. We should not be looking out to anybody. We're in a global competition. Trade is a competition. It's like we are running a race with somebody and we expect the person we are running against to give us oxygen, to run faster than him or her. It's not possible. If we think that is the way things go, that we are deceiving ourselves. But the only thing we can say as a bank, our Flexing Bank, is that our support for the AFCFTA will remain strong, because we know that that is the only way we can get out of the situation we find ourselves as Africans.
Still ahead on the program. After a century and a half, Ethiopian artifacts return home. We'll give you more details in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. We continue in Nigeria, in the northern region of the country, where people are struggling to recover without power supply from the national grid. In Borno State, the problem is affecting the city's economy and businesses are suffering. A whirring machine churns out reams of prints at the Gaza printing press in northeastern Nigeria's Maiduguri as owner Garba Zongo supervises. The copies are perfect, but the past 10 months have been the toughest for Zango's nearly 50-year career, as his business, like the rest of Maiduguri, struggles without power from the national grid.
We used 2 generators in shift. But at that time, the gas was okay, the price of gas is okay, diesel. But now it has gone to an extent that every day, if we have to work, we have to buy 9,000 naira gas every day. Unless if there is no work, then we can manage and sit down like this. And to be honest, not only printing, but everything has been affected.
Aisela Mohamed Bunu says he can only afford to run 4 of his 40 freezers and had to cut his 300 employees down to 50 amid a near doubling in diesel costs.
When we are using electricity, we can able to own all of our fridge at the same time. But by using gen, we are using only 4.
Out of how many?
Some, they have 10, 15, even 20. You can only using 4. This causes loss to us in our business.
Maiduguri is the capital of Borno State, the epicenter of Nigeria's 12-year battle against Islamist militants, who in the past even bombed the city. In January, militants bombed transmission lines, cutting the city's power, stifling efforts to rebuild its fragile economy. The destruction left residents sweltering inside, struggling to sleep and reliant on expensive, polluting fuel generators to do business. The problem is stifling the city's economy, which itself is crucial to security in the Lake Chad region.
This has now thrown a spanner in the works because it's increased the cost of doing business in the city. It's pushing some people back into poverty, and it's just affecting the general economic life in the city. So you have a higher cost of doing business, which is being transferred to the cost of goods. And then that is reducing the demand for goods by the normal. Tyre warns that those who cannot earn enough through legitimate business are easily lured into providing information, goods and services to the militants who roam just outside the city. However, businesses rendering on-demand services have said the power outage is a win, doubling their income.
Lack of power has never been a problem in my business before. If I am to sell my goods or handset accessories, I'm charging people's handsets per day. When we have power, I can make up to 2,000 or 3,000 naira. But now, I make 5,000 naira and above.
While residents remain hopeful, many have sought alternative power forms like solar as the cost of fuel continues to rise in the country. President Cyril Ramaphosa is asking South African men to play a greater role in preventing gender-based violence in the country. In his letter to South Africans, Mr. Ramaphosa said if each man gathers 2 men and the 3 pledge to never rape a woman, never lay a hand on a woman and hold each other accountable to this pledge, then we can start to seriously tackle gender-based violence in our country. Well, he further said that GBV was a pandemic and most men are to blame. Mr. Ramaphosa's comments follow the release of the latest crime statistics by the police, which indicate an increase in rape cases, domestic violence and child murders. Hundreds of inmates have fled a prison in Matadi, a port city in the west of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Local media reports 2 armed men arrived at the jail, subdued the guards, and then broke open the main gate. Security officials said about 300 inmates rushed towards the police, who were firing into the air, grabbing their weapons and killing one officer. The deputy director of the jail said the facility had 737 inmates, even though it only had a capacity for 150. Algerian dairy cow breeders say the country can achieve self-sufficiency in milk production if they are provided with additional grassland. The government spends $1.3 billion a year on milk imports, yet it is often unavailable in Algerian shops, reflecting wider problems with domestic food production and distribution in the still largely state-run economy.
Algerian dairy cattle breeder Ibrahim Bouacha believes his country can end its very costly milk imports if the government delivers on promises to encourage farmers. With state revenues pressured by lower oil prices and output in recent years, Algeria has had to draw heavily on its foreign currency reserves to finance import of foodstuffs, including milk, as well as other subsidized goods.
We are at the lowest levels of milk production, and we have not yet reached self-sufficiency. For several reasons, for example, the lack of green grass and the very high prices of fodder, the farmers are sometimes forced to sell 2 or 3 cows to be able to feed the other cows.
With a total annual bill for imported foodstuffs of $19 billion, the government is eager to increase domestic food production as it cautiously moves to reform parts of a largely state-run economy long dominated by oil and gas. Farmers like Bouacha have long complained about high taxes, as well as costly animal feed and bureaucratic hurdles that they say hold production back.
To increase the number of cows, we must provide more land, because each dairy cow needs at least 1 hectare. We've had the same number of dairy cows for 10 years. If we had more land, we could raise the number of cows. There is also a rise in the price of material.
Bouacha also hopes the government will lift its freeze on drilling wells imposed to preserve groundwater reserves. This would help irrigation for grass and winter fodder after recent years of drought. Agricultural Minister Abdul Hamid Hamdani has said he wants to increase Algeria's dairy herd to 20,000 cows from 8,000 by 2024. The government currently guarantees a purchase price for milk and offers bonuses for higher production rates. Agriculture already generates 13% of Algeria's economic output and employs 2.5 million people. However, the sector is dependent on rainfall, pays workers poorly, and sees little technological innovation that could stimulate further growth.
Well, after months of private negotiations, 13 Ethiopian artifacts are returning home, hidden away for a century and a half in luxurious private collections and displayed in grand European museums. These particular artifacts were taken in the 19th century after the battle between the British and Ethiopian empires.
After a 19th century battle, 13 Ethiopian artifacts have finally returned home, following months of private negotiations.
Our country's ancient civilization history, artifacts, fingerprints of indigenous knowledge, culture and value have been looted through war or smuggled out illegally. At this moment, countless treasures of ours are found in various countries' museums, research institutes, and in the hands of individuals.
The items, which includes an intricately latticed processional cross, a richly colored triptych depicting Jesus' crucifixion, and an ornate red and brass imperial shield, are part of the largest act of restitution in Ethiopia's history. These particular artifacts were taken in 1868, following the Battle of Magdala, between the British and Ethiopian empires. Some of the objects have been offered in an auction by a private seller in Britain this June.
In England, there are plenty of our treasures looted from Magdala. It was not possible to return all of them. However, these treasures are the biggest so far in number and in kind. This is the first time this volume of treasure is returned home.
Officials say the work is far from over and they have started negotiations with the British Museum to bring back 12 tablets. Tablets are replicas of the Ark of the Covenant that are sacred in Ethiopian Orthodox Church, one of the world's oldest churches. The tablets were also in the aftermath of the Battle of Magdala.
We believe we'll be successful on bringing them back, and the negotiations will continue with other artifacts abroad. At this moment, it is clear that our treasures are being destroyed. It is obvious our treasures are being looted and smuggled out of the country illegally.
Ethiopia has been mired in conflict for over a year, with the federal government fighting the Tigray People's Liberation Front, which used to dominate national politics, but now governs the northern region of Tigray. Cultural artifacts are believed to have been damaged in the fight.
And that's it on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.